All right, welcome back. I hope you're having a good day. This is one of my Ficus Microcarpa. I will just kind of give you the backstory here real quick. About 2 years ago, I took not really a cutting. It was more like a piece that came off of a larger stump that I broke apart. It did have some roots and stuff in there. And in the effort to save some roots and the health of the tree and everything, I had to kind of pot it in here sideways. And, I'll show you a look at what it looked like coming, that way or whatever. And then what it looked like from there. And I let it go for, I guess, almost a year. And it started growing fine, but it started getting a bunch of growth up here and not much down here. And then about 9 months ago, I made like my 5th or 6th video front in the theory that I was going to cut back a lot of this stuff heavily up here so that it would get some bottom growth down here. And the bottom growth started coming out of the bottom and kind of like almost like getting aerial roots and everything right with the soil. And then, like, I don't know if you guys, well, actually I know you can see there, started getting just all kinds of crazy growth. And so much of this would get that, and the ficus do this all the time for me anyway. Here's some dieback. There's a ton of dieback in here. And then sometimes it might go ahead and leaf out. Sometimes it might die back. And in the meantime, all this other stuff just kind of went crazy. I'm sure if I had taken like caliper measurements of the trunk, this would be a little thicker, but you can also see a ton of the actual growth of the trunk is now under there because that's kind of where these branches are. But anyhow, I wanted to show you guys this. I saw this just the other day. See if I can zoom in and see here. That'll look like it's almost getting back budding or whatever, but that's not actually back budding. That's where it's starting to form its little figs. This time of year, I would not mind it, but I was thinking that I could kind of like make a raft out of it or something like that. But I still just kind of wonder why it is getting all this growth here and nothing's really happening with it. Some of this stuff, I said, like that was cut completely off 9 months ago. Kind of spit out a ton of branches and then just kind of died off. And then it sprouted another one like right out of that same spot. I'm going to go ahead, I'm not going to leave that growing tip, that's way too long and leggy there. A lot of this growth that I said kind of doesn't make sense to me, I'm going to cut that all the way back. And again, some of this that I'm doing now, I'm just going to kind of do before, it will give me a good look at what it is I've got going on here. You see it kind of looks wet right now. I did just water it not too long ago. I'm going to cut some of it off just to kind of see what's going on. I said the idea was try to use this for a sacrifice branch, but sometimes things do not go exactly the way you had planned. That's kind of coming off the bottom, but I think I'm going to cut that larger part off and leave that part for now. This is coming off all the way down in there. That's right, that's... From a spot that was growing pretty decently. I didn't go back and look at that old video yet. I probably should have looked at that before I made this one just to kind of see what it looked like so I could kind of remember. And then coming out of the top of the tree, there was that good strong branch, which that died back and then sprouted this. But now that's so long and straight. Of course, I could plan on getting that wired up or whatever. Got this one coming off the side a little, kind of depending on how much I was going to pick it up. And then the next, other than these big gaudy sides that were coming out that I kind of did on purpose, I do admit I did it on purpose, You got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then all 4 of these are just coming right out of that same node, if you will. That one is kind of coming from under the node. And then I think I'll go ahead and take that one and that one off too. Doesn't leave a whole lot of growth on there. I did try to leave the branches that have a ton of growth on there. I mean, again, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little. And you guys should be able to see those little figs going. Almost looks like they're getting ready to sprout second branches. But now that I've taken all the other growth off, the tree will now need to build up energy. It should get a ton of back budding on it no matter what I do with the angle or whatever. And really, I was thinking that once I did all that, I'd get a really good look at what's going on. Still can't really see much. Try to raise it up. I definitely don't want to make it straight. But if I can get it maybe halfway between what it is now and straight without having to do an entire repot, I'd like to. But if I can't, I'll go ahead and do an entire repot. I mean, it is it is March here in Florida. It's definitely a great time to repot these things. But it's only been in here a couple years. It's nice and big pot, considering, that it was just a little piece that I had torn off. Try to see if I can pop some of this top off. I don't really have any good growth at all towards the end at all. I was just about to think about grabbing my large tree pruners, and I got to some live wood there. Dead aerial root there. Trying to see if I can get this guy some daylight. The substrate is almost right up to the top of the pot. Huh. Well, this is going to be very hard to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about on video here. This one is very clearly connected right to that aerial root right there. And of course that one's on the trunk, this one's on the trunk, and so is this one. Now, I always knew something was funny about this one. This one is almost just its own little, I say almost. Hell, that was my fault. That wasn't even the battery's fault or anything like that, but I did wind up pulling it out of there. The curiosity killed the cat or whatever. I had to look, and that one branch I was talking about is sure enough completely separate from the rest of it, and grown through the screen that I have in there. Just how wild and unique, and not even anywhere close to what I thought I was going to find in there. And in my current state of where I'm at in the hobby, I was cutting this size I would throw away. But look at all those roots on there. That's not even a cutting. That's a cutting with a ton of roots on there. I can't throw that away. I'm going to decide what I'm going to do that in a minute. I'm sure I'm just going to get that in a training pot. And I got to think about what I'm going to do with what's left of it now. If you go back and look at those original pictures, I have no idea how that little cutting was growing separate from everything else in there. I really don't know how that was worked out like that. Alright, let's see what we're going to do with this guy here. So this is a little piece that came off of it. My first inclination was to just get it in a small training pot. But, I mean, I can trim the roots down and get it in there if I want to. But because so many roots came off of it, I'd like to keep it. And then I was thinking, I mean, because so many came off and because they're just little fine feeder roots, I was thinking about a bigger training pot or whatever. But then in the end, I just figured, I mean, I got a couple of these still laying around. I would throw away a cutting like that in a minute, but as much, as much roots and life as this thing has, I definitely can't do that. Alright, so that one looks good. I give that a 100% chance of survival. I have had, I've used these little baskets before, and I've had somebody tell me that they'll only last in the Florida sun for, a few months at the most, and I've actually done a recent repot with one of these where it was out there in the sun for about 2.5 years. So that's about how long I think I'd just let this thing recover, see what it turns into. With all those aerial roots hanging down, or those weren't aerial roots, those were actually roots. But they should kind of turn into aerial roots. It's got 2 good growing tips on there. Alright, and now the big one. I do think that ceramic pot I had this in was just one of the rookie mistakes of getting something that, in a ceramic pot like that was nowhere near ready for it. But I did take, not quite a bare root, but I did go out there and wash off some of the roots. Gave some serious thought to going ahead and cutting that aerial root off so that I could straighten it some more, but then I just got a pole sticking straight up. This branch comes from under that root, which bothers me some, but I'm going to let it go for now and just kind of see. I mean, it's got so much good growth, good health. Maybe I'll cut it off. Maybe it'll kind of outgrow that root a little bit. Even though everything I found and see wasn't exactly what I thought, I do believe it all worked out for the best. Kind of glad I did what I did and took a look at it. If I would have tried to leave it in that pot for a couple more years, alright, and if I hadn't just repotted, I'd probably try to wire that piece up. The sun should bring that up. But now that's in the air some, should work out a lot better for the health of the tree. And again, sometimes on some of my repots when I'm too rough, and I kind of think, it's got an 80% chance to survive or something like that. All those roots I saved off here, I'll give this one another 100% to save. But again, it's going to be a hot mess. Not really sure what I'll do with it, but I'll figure it out.